Welcome to Courtyard Conversations. I'm your host, Jalen Jackson. And in today's episode, we have Dr. D. Ann Roper, an esteemed clinician and educator. With over 2 decades of experience in community mental health and substance use disorder treatment, Dr. Roper has pioneered initiatives aimed at reducing law enforcement involvement and aligning care systems to individual needs. Transitioning into academia at the University of Texas at Arlington, she leads the development of the state's first bachelor substance use treatment program, preparing future clinicians with advanced skills. Dr. Roper's research focuses on sexual and gender minority health disparities, behavior change technology, and the intersection of mental health and substance misuse in criminal justice systems. Now join us as we dive into her invaluable insights on LGBTQ plus advocacy, social work, and the transformative power of community support. How are you?
I'm great. I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
No problem. I'm glad to have you here. So to start off, we usually like to get a little bit of background
Sure.
on you. Can you give us a little bit of insight on what your research is about and what guided you to research sexual and gender minority health disparities?
Sure. Well, I am an APT faculty, not a tenure track or tenure faculty, which means research is really just a smaller piece of my training and my education. I really focus on my focus is on teaching, but I have done some research in my master's degree here at UTA for my MSSW and then also for my PhD. And that research was based on LGBTQ plus folks. My master's degree was, I did a thesis and I did a qualitative study about the relationship between lesbians, people who identified as lesbians at the time, and gay men in leadership positions in the Doughlas area. And so then when I went and decided to get my PhD, I studied women who were assigned female at birth. I decided to study smoking in that population. LGBTQ folks who I identify as lesbian, and LGBTQ folks tend to smoke more at higher rates than other groups, and that was really intriguing to me. And it's political, but it's also personal. And it's important. And so being a part of the community since I was very, very young, I just feel like it's really important to highlight research, highlight our community, to really be a role model. That's really a big goal of mine, is to be a role model.
That's always great. When you be a role model, you lead the way. You lead the way and pave the path.
Well, I've been doing it a lot of years, so I guess you could say that.
As long as you're doing it, you need somebody to do it.
Right.
So what can you tell me a little bit of, well, actually I want to know what guided you into social work?
It was one of those things that I didn't just say, okay, I want to be a social worker. I remember like in 3rd grade, I remember thinking,
that's early.
Why aren't there more women singers on, the radio? And I remember I think it was 7th grade, I was such an intense kid. My you have to do this speech, it's your big speech for the first time. And in 7th grade, my topic was about violence on TV and how it affects children.
Oh, that sounds like a thesis.
Yeah, I know, right? So, I just, social work, I think, has just always been sort of part of, I didn't know it was social work, but passion, I'm passionate for advocacy for all folks. And I think as social workers, we're drawn to social work because we're passionate. It's just who we are. As a general rule, it's who we are.
I had to ask. I know everybody has their story of what led them to social work.
Yeah.
So it's always interesting.
The other reason was I didn't have to take algebra.
I'm not good at math either, so I understand.
Eventually, by the time I got to my PhD, I kind of figured it out a little bit. But truly, that did have a little bit of play.
Played a little
in it.
part,
Yeah,
just like a
little
math.
part. Yeah. You do what you can, right?
You do. So can you tell us a little bit of some of the most common challenges faced by LGBTQ plus individuals in society today?
Wow. That's a big question because, I think it changes all the time.
I think so as well.
And I think it depends on where you live, honestly. But, I always wonder, is it easier now? And I did a little research digging into some of the literature about it. A lot more people come out now as LGBTQIA, Two-Spirit. Queer is sort of the umbrella term for sexual and gender minorities. And so, I think people, when I came out a long time ago, it was very different. And it was, of course, prior to the Supreme Court ruling in 2015. And I think today's struggles are very different. There's still struggles, and they're different. One thing I think that we don't do a good job of is having young people understand our history. And understand the fight and the struggle and all of the things that led up to where we are today. And I really think it's important that we understand our history.
And okay, with that, how do you think we should go about that? Because I know there are I believe there are classes here.
Yes.
And I've never heard of anybody taking them. I've never met anybody myself that takes them.
We actually have an LGBTQ plus studies class, and it is open to anyone who is at the university. It's not specific to social work. And I've taught it a few times. And actually, we only have 2 or 3 social workers in there. Usually, it's a diverse group of students. And that makes me so happy. That we have all kinds of majors of students who are interested in LGBTQ studies and the historical perspective. Some of them identify as part of the community, and some of them don't. And they say, I just take this class because I want to learn more and be a part of the community, of the larger community, and learn more about, they have friends or they have family and that kind of thing.
I always think that's the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Just, being a part and just wanting to be involved. Rather than just like, oh no, I don't really want to learn. I feel like you should learn about things that you don't really know about to be able to just accommodate more with the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about our interview coming up, and I was thinking about how the world, the planet is a system, right? And the system stays in balance with diversity, biodiversity, right? Because if we kill off certain plants or we kill off certain animals or certain systems, then everything gets out of whack. It's kind of the same thing with humans, right? Think about if we didn't have diversity. Think about if we didn't have that, we would be way out of balance.
We would.
Yeah.
It'll be like a big step backwards.
Right, exactly. So I appreciate those students who want to learn more, that are not necessarily a part of the community, but they want to learn more and support the community.
Do you teach it like every semester?
It's taught every semester, I believe, even in the summer. I didn't teach it this semester. I did teach it the last couple of semesters.
I would have took it. I would have took it if you were teaching.
You know what? Everybody who teaches it, we make sure that they're really good at the topic.
Yes, ma'am. That's how it's supposed to be.
Yes.
How do you think societal attitudes and policies impact the mental health and well-being of LGBTQ plus individuals?
Oh my gosh. One of the things that a lot of people don't understand is structural stigma or structural discrimination. And what that means is, for example, before 2015, before we had equal rights, right? There were some studies done at some clinics up north. I believe it was Massachusetts, maybe Boston. I'm sorry, I can't remember. But the Gay Men's Health Crisis Clinic, a lot of clinics that served gay men. And they took the medical records, big medical records, it was all anonymous. They looked at how much in certain states where they have positive policies for LGBTQ folks, less discrimination and that kind of thing, more open. They looked at the rates of depression and anxiety and mental health reasons that they were visiting the doctor, and their rates were lower than in other areas. So, in other words, people who live in states where there's more structural laws against who they are, so to speak, or discrimination, have higher rates of mental health issues. And we can look at that and we can see that through large databases of medical records access.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I actually think that makes a lot of sense because it's kind of like a barrier.
It's a huge barrier. It's a huge barrier because think about it. So if you're a young person and you have discovered that you are part of this community, but you get messages from your leadership in your state or your schools or your community that say you're not okay and there's really something very wrong about you, that gets internalized. And that's a powerful message to be internalized and leads to, issues of depression and stigmatizing experiences that they internalize and anxiety. That's why the more we can be advocates for, the more we can speak positive of, LGBTQ folks, the better off everybody is.
Yep. That is very important to be able to advocate. Because it's like, if you have someone in power who's not advocating, it makes it, especially because you are in such a big position, it makes you feel like, oh, I don't matter.
Yeah.
Or I need to find somebody else to advocate for me.
Right. It's hard when you feel like you don't have a voice and you feel like your voice is not heard, even if you did speak up. Invisibility is detrimental to people.
Wow. That's a statement right there. That's powerful. That's funny. It's actually funny that we're on this question about political statements. How do the ripple effects of political statements impact LGBTQ plus individuals and communities?
If you take the LGBTQ studies class, you would you would learn that back in the HIV and AIDS crisis, at the very beginning, we couldn't get funding, and we had thousands and thousands of people, gay men specifically, dying, and we didn't know why, and we needed research, and I lived through that time, and we were fighting for our lives, literally fighting for our lives in our community. Talk about invisibility. And it wasn't until, I believe it was President Reagan who actually used the word AIDS publicly before we got any funding to really take a look at that and start saving lives and helping people. So really and truly, not only our leadership, but language that our leadership uses, language that anyone uses is very powerful.
That's true. And I know, like, in today's time, like, people are very, they try to be very selective with wording and things like that, because they don't want to say the wrong things.
Right. Don't want to say the wrong thing. Right. Right. Everybody, so they don't say anything.
Yeah. So I would like to see, like, people using wording in the more positive way rather than just not saying anything at all.
Right. It's okay to ask. How do you identify? What are your pronouns? My pronouns are she, her, that kind of thing. It's okay. We have some research that shows that people are more reticent to talk about their money and their income than their pronouns. Believe it or not.
Really?
Yep.
I would have never guessed that.
Yep.
I would have never guessed that. And I actually learned more about asking for people's pronouns being here at the School of Social Work.
Oh, that makes me happy.
Because before I didn't think to ask. It was never on my head to ask, hey, what are your pronouns?
Right.
But I got here and it's like, it's actually a respectful thing to ask.
Absolutely. And it makes someone visible, right? Right. It makes someone visible.
Um, what can future social workers do to make a positive impact in addressing discrimination and social injustice faced by the LGBTQ plus community?
Such a big question.
Yeah, I know. I know that has a lot of answers.
Right, right. It does. It has a lot of answers. I think first of all, learning what they need to learn, right? Doing your own work, figuring it out, understanding how to talk to other people about diversity, just in general, just talking about how important everyone's contribution is. Talking about like what you did, where you learned how to talk about pronouns or ask people about their pronouns. Stepping into courage, I think, and creating courageous spaces is what we have to do as social workers. That's one of the biggest pieces we have to learn is how do we create those courageous spaces for everyone? And I think everybody goes about that a different way and has to learn that journey and figure out that journey for themselves. But it's a wonderful, powerful journey that you can, when you learn more about yourself even, right? When you do that kind of work.
I think like how you said, like taking the classes specifically to learn about the history of certain things. I think that would help a lot too.
Absolutely. Because it's all together. It's not just, the LGBTQ movement. It is women's rights movements. It is civil rights movements. It is all of it together. We're all in it together, right?
Exactly. I'll be elated the day we all move as one.
Right.
Right. That'll be the day.
And respect the differences. Not just we don't want to not see anything different, right? We want to see differences. We want to appreciate differences in people.
Yes. That'll make a big difference.
Yeah.
It just changes the way the world's perspective.
Right. It enriches our own individual lives as well.
Yes. You talked a little bit about your research with smoking,
Yes.
And members of the LGBT community. What are some factors that contribute to the higher smoking rates?
Well, one of the leading theories is the minority stress theory, and we don't exactly know 100% what contributes to this, but that's one of the leading theories. That's what I was kind of trying to figure out, right?
Yes.
in my research, in my dissertation, is why do we smoke more? It's pretty complex. I actually was an ex-smoker and came out really early as a lesbian, and back then smoking was more acceptable. It started becoming more stigmatized. But even women who identify as lesbian, assigned female at birth, even smoke more than men or gay men assigned male at birth. We smoke longer, and we just have the higher rates, and it affects everything, right? Smoking affects everything. I think that minority stress theory has to do with the structural stigma, the discrimination, all of those kinds of things, vicarious trauma that we hear through, the media and things like that. That's one thing. Another reason might be like a rebel sort of identity, sort of this outlaw identity kind of thing, because, think about it, smoking is really a little bit stigmatized. And so some people go to the opposite. Instead of sort of hiding it, they become this sort of outlaw kind of person, which was me, I have to admit. I was that person. But, I learned a lot doing that, research. And I learned that women assigned female at birth, people assigned female at birth, tend to relapse for different reasons in smoking than other people, and it's just fascinating. It's really fascinating. There's a lot of reasons, but we really think it's about the stress.
Wow.
Right, the stress of living.
I know it can be stressful. And you said it's a rebel mindset. It just in my head I just pictured like a guy like with a leather jacket on and just
absolutely.
That's what I pictured when you said a rebel mindset.
Right.
But yeah, I think stress does lead to finding different ways of coping.
Absolutely.
Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
and I also it brought up the question to me. Does I know your research was specifically on smoking, but does it lead to not does it lead to could that same thing apply to any other substance?
Yes, absolutely. And honestly, a lot of the tobacco companies and liquor companies will target certain populations,
Hmm.
and the queer community is one of the target populations as well. They were one of the first. The smoking corporations were the first corporate, like big corporate companies
Hmm.
that funded HIV/AIDS and LGBTQ rights movements back in the day, and they did that on purpose.
Wow.
They did that on purpose. They were saying, smoking back when they were trying to ban smoking from buildings. You're too young to remember this, I'm sure. But used to, we could smoke in a room, anywhere,
Hmm.
in a building, right? And so the tobacco companies were sort of strategically trying to align themselves with our groups, our
Hmm.
populations, saying it was a choice to smoke. And so being LGBTQ was a choice as well, is what they were trying to piggyback on. Of course, we know that's not necessarily true.
Hmm.
We have a lot of research that demonstrates the opposite. But they were the first ones that recognized the queer community. And when
Wow.
you are invisible and you are recognized by a huge corporation, you tend to be loyal
Hmm.
as a group. And the same thing with liquor companies and, beer companies and those kinds of things. So they target, and then people are loyal. And plus, we have stress on top of that. And
Hmm.
if you've got that outlaw identity, same thing, right?
Yes.
So lots of reasons.
Wow. That's that is true. Just looking at it and just I never realized that you it's that's how most companies get people in.
Yeah, exactly.
They talk. Oh my goodness! I just,
Get a little
I
light
know
bulb, huh?
yeah, it did because it's
Hmm.
like I know like they cater to different
Right,
people
right.
and just different groups of people, but I never knew it was that specific to where like even the fact of targeting people who feel invisible
Right.
and making you seem visible just to get
Yes.
just to get your product out.
Yes, to get your product out and to politically motivate you to go vote in their favor. That's what was happening in
Wow.
California back in the day. Absolutely.
I didn't think about it that deep at all. Not to the voting aspect.
Hmm.
Um, what if you can,
Hmm.
what is the most impactful moment of in your work dealing with a client with mental health challenges?
Yeah. Well, um, there are so many. I've done a lot of different jobs, and mostly in mental health and treatment of people who misuse substances.
Mhm.
And it's hard work, I got to tell you, Jalen. It's really hard work. So you kind of have to, when you have those moments, you really have to hang on to them. So one of the moments that I hang on to
Mhm.
is I was on campus at Texas Women's University finishing up
Mhm.
something for one of my classes. And I was walking across campus. They had a lot of construction going on. And there was a gentleman, I could tell out of the corner of my eye, he was trying to kind of get my attention, I think. I
Mhm.
just, kept walking. And finally, he came up to me hesitantly and he said, "Miss Tian." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "I just want to thank you." Um, he said, "I have a family now and I have a job and I am back on my own 2 feet. Thank you for the program that you were a part of. It's because of that program that I'm here and that my family is good and I'm back in with my family." And those things, those kinds of stories are why we do this. We're not just touching one person,
Mhm.
we're touching whole families and generations.
See, that's always great to hear. And you actually answered my next question. I was gonna ask you, how do these like positive outcomes and like these personal stories and everything like contribute to the positive outcomes? But
Yeah.
I know that's rewarding.
It
I
is.
know that is
It
so
is.
rewarding.
You know, we have such passion, as we started out talking about. Social workers have such passion. And our passion can burn us out if we don't harness it and use it and take care of ourselves. And I think one of the ways to do that is to remember the stories of impact that we make all the time. And we have to also trust that we make that impact even when people don't tell us,
Mhm.
because we can recognize when people have made impacts on us.
Yes. That's those impacts. Because I listen to, like, whenever anybody comes in here for an episode, I love to hear about the impact they made,
Yeah.
because it just, I don't know, it warms my heart just to see, like, y'all do so much in the field, and I know, like, the best reward is seeing the reaction or the outcome that comes with it.
It is the best reward. And they're few and far between,
Mm-hmm.
but you got to hang on to them
Mm-hmm.
because they're there. And it keeps you going. It just keeps you going.
Can you suggest any specific resources or avenues for our listeners to get involved?
I think that everybody, we have such a diverse campus and people from all over, and there's always community events. Google is your friend,
Mhm.
right? Get involved. Just go to a pride parade, and talk to people and observe and look up the calendar events and things like that. There's lots of ways to find organizations that you can volunteer for. Also, I think making sure that you vote, and you vote on a local level. That's really important to understand what's going on in our communities at the grassroots level. That's where it
Yes.
makes a difference.
And how can listeners apply the insights gained from our conversation today in their own lives and communities?
Oh, that's a test question. I think just doing your own work, doing your own work and figuring out, finding your own voice, finding your voice for other folks, and, just doing that work, right?
Mhm.
Be better.
Yes, ma'am. Well, I think that's all we have for today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Jalen. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Great conversation.
All right. If you want to learn more about the School of Social Work and what social workers do, please go to our website and follow our social media pages. And please be sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, and turn on those post notifications for more content down the road. As always, everyone, please be safe and make sure to check on your friends. Until next time, signing off, I'm Jalen Jackson.